She signed off with a Hungarian blessing. Isten Veled, God is with you, to her sister of the sun and the moon, to her tie. Those were Jamie Lee Curtis's final public words about Kelly Curtis, her older sister, her first friend, her lifelong confidant. Kelly Curtis died peacefully on the morning of Saturday, May 30th, 2026, at her home in Bellevue, Idaho. She was 69 years old. She was not the famous one, not in the way the world measures fame. She was, by the account of the person who knew her best, the one who came back, who stayed, who made the almond crescent cookies at Christmas and earned the nickname Auntie Cookie and played Pokémon Go and loved thrifting and travel, and the people around her with a generosity that Jamie Lee Curtis could not find enough words for. This is her story. To understand Kelly Curtis, you have to start with where she came from is one of the most storied families in Hollywood history. Her father was Tony Curtis. Her mother was Janet Leigh. Say those names to anyone with any knowledge of classic cinema and watch their face change. Tony Curtis, Some Like It Hot, Spartacus, one of the defining male stars of the 1950s and 1960s. Janet Leigh, the shower scene in Psycho, a career that spanned decades, a presence that was genuinely magnetic on screen. Kelly Curtis was born into that world. Not the glamorous surface version of it, the actual interior of it, the Hollywood marriage with all its pressures and complications, the divorced parents, competition for attention, the specific experience of being a child whose parents are two of the most photographed people in the world. Alongside her in all of it, her younger sister Jamie Lee, who would grow up to become, in her own right, one of the most recognized actresses of her generation. An Oscar winner, a horror icon, a person whose face is as familiar to the public as her parents' faces were to an earlier generation. Kelly watched all of that happen from the inside, from the beginning, and by her sister's account, she did it with grace. Jamie Lee Curtis's tribute is one of the most honest of public writing about a sibling relationship. She did not smooth over the complicated parts. She acknowledged them directly. She described a childhood of closeness alongside sibling competition. The specific dynamic of two children navigating divorced parents, both wanting love and attention, both finding their own ways to reach for it. That is not a fairy tale portrait. That is a real description of what it is like to grow up in a fractured household with someone who is also your closest witness. But then she described the turn. Kelly came back to be with Jamie at her wedding, and then Jamie said she never really left again. That sentence is everything. The childhood competition resolved into something deeper. The sister who might have drifted, who had her own life, her own path, her own reasons to stay away, chose instead to stay close. For decades, she became, in Jamie's words, her first friend and lifelong confidant. The person you call, the person who knows the full story, the person whose presence at your wedding was not an obligation but a choice, and who followed that choice by simply staying. Kelly Curtis was not simply Jamie Lee Curtis's sister. She was an actress in her own right, a person with her own career, her own credits, her own choices about what she wanted to do with the life she had been given. Her first on-screen appearance came before she could have made any choice at all. She appeared as an infant in the 1958 film The Vikings, alongside her parents. Born into the frame before she could walk, she grew up and chose to stay in it. In 1983, she appeared alongside Jamie Lee in Trading Places, one of the hit comedies of that era, starring Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. Two sisters on screen together, carrying a family legacy into a new decade. She went on to build her own distinct body of work. A starring role in the 1991 horror film The Devil's Daughter, Lieutenant Carolyn Plummer in The Sentinel, the 1990s science fiction television, a guest appearance in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and then a pivot. Away from acting and toward producing, toward local documentaries, toward a quieter form of storytelling that didn't require the same kind of public visibility that her family name had always attracted. She settled in Bellevue, Idaho. She thrifted. She traveled. She played Pokémon Go, a detail that Jamie Lee Curtis included in her tribute with obvious affection. She made almond crescent cookies at Christmas until the family gave her a nickname for it. In the Future Youth Zone, Auntie Cookie, that nickname tells you everything about who Kelly Curtis chose to be in the part of her life that the cameras weren't following. Jamie Lee Curtis's tribute is worth examining closely because it does something rare. It tells the truth about love without making it simple. She described her sister as jaw-droppingly beautiful, as a talented actress, and as someone whose loving generosity was a defining characteristic, and she placed those descriptions alongside the honest acknowledgement of the competition, the complicated childhood, the divorced parents, the future youth zone, the years when the path between them was not entirely clear. That is not a eulogy that was written to manage a public image. It is a tribute written by someone who knew a person fully the difficult parts and the beautiful parts, and who chose to share both because the full truth is more honoring than the sanitized version. She described Kelly's tradition of making almond crescent cookies at Christmas as if it were as significant as any film credit. Because for the people who ate those cookies around that table in those years, it was. The small things are the real thing. The nicknames, the traditions, the showing up at a wedding and not leaving. Those are the things Jamie Lee Curtis is grieving, not the actress, the sister. Kelly Curtis grew up in one of the most photographed families in American entertainment history. Her parents' faces were on magazine covers. Their names were on marquees. Their marriage and its end was public property in the way that celebrity marriages always are. And Kelly grew up inside all of that. Not as the star, as the daughter, as the older sister, as a person whose job in the family's interior life was not to be famous, but to be present. She was present. By Jamie Lee Curtis's account, that is what defined her. The sister who came to the wedding and stayed, the aunt who made the cookies, the confidant who was there for the decades when the cameras were pointed elsewhere. There is a specific kind of person who plays that role in a family, who doesn't need to be at the center of the frame, who finds their meaning in the relationships rather than the wrecking. Kelly Curtis would. Jamie Lee Curtis, who has spent her entire life in the center of the frame, knew it, valued it, is grieving the loss of it with a specificity and an honesty that makes clear how irreplaceable it was. My first friend. That is not a publicity line. That is the oldest truth in the relationship. No official cause of death has been disclosed. The family has not shared the medical details of Kelly's passing. She died peacefully at home. That privacy belongs to the family and deserves to be honored. Remains as the tribute. The photos Jamie Lee shared, described as never before seen, offering a window into a relationship that was largely lived outside public. Two daughters of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, born into Hollywood royalty, finding their own ways to navigate what that inheritance meant. One stayed in the center of the industry and became one of its most recognized figures. Moved to Idaho and made almond crescent cookies and played Pokémon Go and was there, quietly, for every important moment of her sister's life. Both of those lives were full. Both were real, both mattered. Public will remember Jamie Lee Curtis for decades of film and television, and the Oscar and the horror franchise, and the public advocate. The people who loved Kelly Curtis will remember Auntie Cookie and the Hungarian blessing, sister who came back. Auntie Curtis and Janet Leigh were two of the most beautiful people in Hollywood. Their daughters inherited that. Jamie Lee Curtis has said so directly. She described Kelly as jaw-droppingly beautiful, and the photos that have circulated since her death confirm it. Beauty was not what made Kelly Curtis irreplaceable to the people who loved her. What made her irreplaceable was the staying, the choosing to come back, the choosing to remain. The choosing to be present for the ordinary things, the Christmases and the cookie and the long conversations and the Pokémon Go and the thrift stores and the years that accumulate quietly into a life. Jamie Lee Curtis ended her tribute with a Hungarian blessing, Isten Veled. God is with you, to her sister of the sun and the moon, to her tie. I'll see you on down the line. That closing line, I'll see you on down the line, is not a performance of faith. It is the specific language of a person who believes that the people we love do not simply end. Whatever you believe about what comes after, there is something true in it. The sister who came to the wedding and stayed, the aunt who made the cookies. First friend, she is not gone from the people who carry her. She is just on down the line. Isten Veled, Kelly.